is back into it in Chester. Here's El Senior. Yes! Yes!
The center back, Jacob Glesnes, is going for it.
Oh my God! What a goal! And that will do it! One of the best comebacks in recent years. 3 unanswered by the Union, and they go into the Gold Cup break, winning it 3.
Hello, welcome to the Free Kick Podcast. My name is Todd, and seeing as the Union don't have a game for a week and a couple of days, I thought it was best if we continue with our series that first started the podcast all the way back in December. So that series, if you're not familiar, is where I bring on fellow Union fans, get the backstories, discuss multiple topics, and just go from there and everything. So like I said, with the Union not playing for a week and a couple of days and everything, I would like to welcome on to the show today, Mr. Jon Marks. How are you doing, John?
I'm good, Todd. How are you?
I'm doing excellent and everything. I would much rather have you on after the Union would have beat Orlando in the MLS is Back tournament, but as we know, they didn't make it to the final and everything. So I got this scheduled a little bit earlier than I had hoped, but the main thing is you're here and everything, and the regular season will continue August 21st. So just because we didn't win the MLS is Back tournament doesn't mean that we don't have a chance at silverware for the rest of the season. But I've always had Union friends come on, and just when they've come on the podcast, they've given the backstory, how they got into the team, how they became a fan. So, John, I'll start with that first question. So how did you first get into the team?
Well, basically, I've been in soccer my entire life. My family, we did everything in soccer, over the years. To give you an example, when the U.S. played whatever that Russian club team was way back at Franklin Field, we were there. When the U.S. played Sheffield Wednesday at the Vet, we were there. I mean, we just kind of came out to stuff. The 94 World Cup, we were in the Meadowlands for a couple of games. And basically when, the Union, the franchise came to Philadelphia, I had a lot of things on my plate at the time. It wasn't even on my radar. I heard about it and I was so involved in other things, I didn't even realize it. And then come to find out that my mother actually bought season tickets for my younger brother and I, which, it was uncharacteristic of her, but because it was such a big deal, I think she understood the weight of it. And, we, I guess from there embarked on the adventure of, going to games and being fans.
Yeah, absolutely. So have you guys been a season ticket holders ever since the team first got there, or has it?
We were, the first year, my father arranged the tickets and we were in the Chester end. And then all the years after that, the year after that, we moved to the River end. We were in 139 for the next 8 years, I guess. And then a few years ago, life kind of, took both my brother and I in different directions, and we, decided to give the tickets up and just kind of be guerrillas in a way, I guess, touch and go when we can.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, still to be a season ticket member for 8+ years and everything, I mean, that's a long time to be committed to something and everything. And myself, I sat in 117, which is across from the River end and everything. And I was like, man, this, you see it on TV and everything, like the fans, every time there's a corner kick or a goal, they're all standing up going crazy and everything. And so I was like, yeah, nobody's really doing that over here in this section. So I was like, I want to be down there, the River end. So after that game, I moved my seats down there and everything. And unfortunately, with the whole coronavirus thing, haven't taken advantage of being a full season ticket holder yet. But we'll see what happens and everything. But I've always been curious, I've had some people come on and talk about going to away games, talking about, some of their best moments have actually not been in Chester, but when they went on to see the Union play in an away game. So have you ever traveled to watch this team in an away game?
I have seen the Union multiple times at Red Bull Arena. Went to Toronto once. I've been to DC. We went to the Cup game in DC at the Maryland Soccerplex that time, that awful penalty kick shootout. I've been to Orlando to see the Union. I was on the bus known as SOB 9 to go up to the Cup game, that 4:00 in the afternoon Cup game where we knocked Red Bull out. of the Open Cup, which was, the best thing ever. The former president of the Sons of Ben, Kenny Hansen, may he rest in peace. I will tell you that the guy could wear a belt like nobody else, because we tried repeatedly on that bus to pants him, and it just wouldn't happen. I mean, we tried to pants the president, and his belt was tight as could be. So, hats off to Kenny, and, belts tight to Kenny too, because he kept it together.
Man, that is an awesome moment right there. So would you say that that's probably your favorite game that you went to for an away game, that Open Cup game?
I mean, yeah, I would say so, considering the fact I went to Toronto and saw them lose 1-0 to what one of their players called the worst team in the world at that point, like the entire world. Orlando was 0-0. I mean, I was at the game when Union beat Red Bull 2-0, finally getting a win up there after a long time. So, but yeah, for the uniqueness of it, getting on a bus at like 12 noon, schlepping up there, if you ask anybody that was on that trip, it was so much freaking fun. And the ticket they gave us, it said SOB 9 on it. We all decided we're getting on SOB 9. So that's just known as, SOB 9, and everybody who was on it knows what that means.
Yeah, well, now if I hear anybody say SOB 9, now I'll know the backstory why they say that and everything. So I thank you for that backstory right there, John. But you said you've been down to DC United to see. Well, you've been to Maryland to see the Union take on DC United, and that's something I was really looking forward to. Was traveling down to DC with a whole bunch of Union fans and just watching the Union take on DC United, and especially after seeing the Union demolish DC United last year 5-1, I was like, man. And then the Keystone Ultras, you're starting the Shala-La chant down there and everything. And from just talking to fellow Union supporters, like apparently that atmosphere was like really, really crazy and everything. So I was like, I would love to be a part of something like that and everything. And I like I said earlier, I've heard a lot of people say, sometimes the away games are a lot more fun than games in Chester and everything, because it's not a ton of people that go and everything. It's a small, close group of people who go and everything, but like they really bring it each and every game and everything, and they make the atmosphere the best they can and everything. And so I was like, yeah, if that's one thing I can do this year, go down to DC, I'm definitely going to do it. But again, we know everything going on with the coronavirus and everything. But do you have any other Union stories that you want to bring up that just stick out to you?
I mean, speaking of DC, I actually had occasion to become friends with some guys from DC that are part of the District Ultras. They have many different support groups down there where we pretty much have, one big one. So it's a little bit different, but I happened to meet those guys and after a game one night, and, we hung out, and then we kind of stayed in touch, and then we went down there for an away game. They've come back up here, and whenever we have an occasion to be at a stadium together, we always kind of try to find time to spend some time and say hello and talk to each other. And it's a relationship that kind of has just been forged over a long period of time. But that's one of the things that I always look forward to. If I see a DC game on the schedule, I'm always going to wonder, are those guys coming up? And they're always traveling whenever they can. So Philly's an easy one. So it's always great to see them and catch up. You have to try to navigate security to go hang out with them, because they don't want you wandering into DC fans. They came back to the old SOB lot one time, all the way back, all the way back by that trash refinery or whatever it is. And they came walking up, and people were like, what are these guys doing here? And I had to tell like 20 people, no, they're cool. They're with me. They're cool. They're with me. They just came walking through and not causing any trouble. But, you see 5 DC fans coming through. Everybody gets what are they doing all the way out here? And they had to escape to do that too. So, it's always fun. There's always something going on. But with those guys, it's always in good fun and great to catch up with them.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, that's what it's about. The game just bringing people together, no matter if, I know DC United doesn't like to call us the rivals. And I mean, I know we say it all the time. We consider New York Red Bulls as a rival, and they don't want to consider us as one and everything. So it's weird trying to say, okay, they're our rivals, when these teams don't want to acknowledge us as their rivals just because we're so close and everything. But yeah, I mean, that's an awesome story that you shared right there. But, I want to talk about MLS is back tournament. Just get your thoughts, because last week on the podcast, I said the Union, the overall grade I would give them from the whole tournament was a B for the performance. And we saw the Union pick up 7 out of 9 points in the group stages, which gives them 8 points in the regular season, which sees them sit in 4th place, tied with Orlando. But I think Orlando has a better goal differential, so they sit in 3rd, Union sit in 4th. But I want to know, just what are your thoughts exactly on how you thought the Union played in the MLS is back tournament?
Well, I mean, I think that the B you gave the Union should definitely stand for Blake, first of all, because without Andre Blake, we don't get out of the group stage. He thankfully, came back to form for this tournament. And I think in past seasons he had dipped a little bit. But, I like the way that the team forms. I think that it's still a work in progress. When you look at, the fact that, Shabilko had his difficulties in the preseason, coming down with the coronavirus and all that stuff and then getting better. I don't think he's fully there yet. Him and Santos, I haven't seen them gel as much as they could yet. I think they need a different type of forward to complement one of those guys. And then, those two should be competing for time with like a smaller, more creative forward, like a Diego Rossi type or a Giovinco type. And then, the difference would give a playmaker like Aronson more options to go forward and, create different things. So, I loved Martinez. I think outside of the Portland game, Wagner was exceptional. Defense, outstanding. Bedoya, solid. I don't think that Ilsinho is really the super sub anymore because everybody's on to him. So I think that we're starting the game. That card's already played. Teams have come in saying when Ilsinho comes in, this is what we do. They're coming in game planning for him. So I think that looking at that attacking third moving forward is going to be definitely an area they need to address.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a lot of the same points that I brought up last week on the podcast when I talked about the Portland game and then just the tournament overall and everything. But, I talked about 6 points and everything I wanted to talk about for the tournament last week and everything. And I don't want to ask you all 6 of the same questions that I answered myself last week, but I will ask you 2 of the questions. So, you kind of mentioned Blake, who I'm going to expect you're going to say was the MVP for the Union, but you might surprise me and the listeners. Which Union player was your MVP for the tournament?
I mean, I have to say Blake because, he just, without him, we're not there. I think that Martinez was exceptional. He kind of, I think he made his mistakes, and kind of rectified them moving forward, and he's willing to own up to what he does wrong. That first New York game, him and Morales got into it a little bit. I think he realized, that's petulant. I shouldn't be doing that. And he seems like, he's going to be a player that other teams are going to absolutely despise, which, we want him on our team. I think as good as anybody else played, the consistency with which Blake played was unparalleled in the team.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he led the tournament in 30. He had 32 or 33 saves. I know it was 30 something, and I believe it was 32. But yeah, I agree with you. I mean, without Andre Blake, the Union, they wouldn't have got out of that group stage and everything, especially when the Union played New York City. I mean, I think he had 6 saves in that game, kept a clean sheet. And then as the tournament progressed and everything, it's like, wow, like Andre Blake is back to the Andre Blake of 2016. And, I said last week, if somebody wanted to argue with me and say that the 2020 version of Andre Blake's better than the 2016, I'm here for that argument and everything, because Andre Blake, we saw in 2018, his form dipped a little bit. Then 2019, his form dipped even more and everything. And for me, I was surprised by Andre Blake the most out of all the Union players in this tournament. I thought he was the MVP, but I just, I thought the Union possibly needed a new goalkeeper during the transfer window in the wintertime, because Andre Blake just made so many mistakes, and especially towards the end of the season and everything. And it's like, man, I don't know if we can do another season with this and everything where we seem like we have a solid team, but now the goalkeeper is a big, giant question mark. And I'm so glad that Andre Blake got back to the Andrew Blake of old and everything. So I'll ask you that too. Which player surprised you the most in this tournament?
Which player surprised me the most? I mean, I don't know that there were really any surprises. I think that I'll go with the most surprising thing is that the other defensive midfielder that they brought in can't find his way into the team. Or how do you say his name? Aravid?
Woodwatts, I think. I don't know. Nobody knows yet because he hasn't played yet. So
yeah. So I'm confused about what his role in all this is, but that really surprised me the most. But outside of that, I think that everybody kind of played to their potential. Santos with the goal scoring definitely got in and was feeling it. I'll say a little too much because I really don't think he should have taken that penalty kick. And I don't think anybody, looked at his face and thought he was going to score. But, the Union are a team that, like when they played Sporting Kansas City, they did what they had to do and they let Sporting Kansas City make mistakes and then they exploited the mistakes. And if you don't take advantage of your opponent's mistakes in an even game, you're not going to win. So, I really wasn't surprised by anybody. I mean, you don't know what Martinez was yet. So just watching him, it was more of a learning process. And, I learned a lot about him and I'm excited to see him for the rest of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, that's a great shout for Woodwatts and everything. I mean, this guy was labeled as the absolute starter and everything. El Brujo Martinez was labeled as the project and everything. But Matai playing over in a league in, I believe it was Slovakia or Slovenia, one of those, and in Europe. So we're just saying Europe. Like any league in Europe's a lot better than the Venezuela league and everything. And so we just expected that, okay, yeah, he'll fit into this team, no problem and everything. And like to not even get a sniff of anything, not even coming off the bench for 5 minutes and everything. And, we didn't have Warren Carvalho because of injury, and they took off Martinez and put in Jack Elliott at one point at center defensive midfielder. And it's like, okay, you have a guy who plays defensive midfielder on the bench, and like that was pretty telling in my opinion. And I was talking about this a lot last episode where, there were a few moments that were disappointing against Portland, but not just Portland, in the tournament as a whole. And, now that I had more time to think about it, like I'm still annoyed with Jim Curtin not using all 5 of his substitutions anytime during the tournament. I said with Jim not using all 5 of his subs, not using more attacking options against Portland, that, in my opinion, that's Jim basically saying, yeah, I don't trust anybody on my bench. My bench options aren't good enough. And so if that's really the case, then the Union need to bring in a few pieces in the transfer market, which we know teams won't be as active because of the whole coronavirus pandemic right now. And that doesn't go for just MLS teams. That goes for teams over in Europe and everything. But, I just want to get your thoughts on Jim Curtin not using 5 substitutions at all during the tournament when he had the option to and everything. And do you believe that was Jim Curtin sending a message saying my bench options just aren't good enough for this team?
I mean, I don't think that you should make subs just to make subs. You have 5 subs, so we make 5 subs, and it's probably an unusual thing for a coach to be thrown a curveball like that. Oh, I can make 5 subs now. It's a new and unique thing that he's not, he's not accustomed to. I do think that, you might have seen, Anthony Fontana more if Jim had more faith that he could be a game breaker. I think, like I said, I mean, it's Shabilko, Santos, and Elsinho right now. Elsinho changes the formation when he comes in. So, as far as Jim not using the subs, I mean, I think that, he has more freedom now to do things the way that he wants. And I think that, if he was happy with what he was seeing, I mean, he doesn't have a lot of options. There's not a lot of strings he can pull because, like you said, he doesn't have the resources. If you go back to when Ernie Stewart was here, like, let's remember, Ernie Stewart kind of locked Jim into playing a certain way. He made Jim say how he wanted to play so that, none of it would look like it was Ernie's fault because it was Jim's way of playing. And basically, you would look at a game, 70 minutes would go by, they wouldn't even bother the defense. They would make a like-for-like sub, and then not bother the defense for 20 more minutes. And, Jim, having talked to him, I've had occasion to have conversations with him over the years. I'll be honest with you, he would bring in more players if they would be supportive of him bringing in more players. So, if he had the options to use and thought that he could change the game, he would do it, because I don't think he's as restrained as he was under Ernie Stewart, who what did Ernie Stewart do? He did everything to not make himself look bad so he could use the union as a stepping stone to get the U.S. job. And, if you can prove me wrong, that's fine, but that's how I saw it.
No, I think you're right. A lot of union fans, now that we've been a few years removed from Ernie Stewart and everything, it's like, okay, yeah, all this stuff that fans were saying when Ernie Stewart was the sporting director, it's like, yeah, people were pushing it off to the side, but now that he's gone, it's like, yeah, it all makes sense and everything, that Ernie Stewart didn't want any of the blame on himself and everything. And look, it did lead to him to get the job with the United States Soccer Federation and everything. So, I mean, congrats to him and everything. But, I just feel like this team's been so much better ever since Ernst Tanner came in. I feel like he's hit pretty much every one of his signings pretty spot on. I know there's still question marks about Andrew Wooten. I know Marco Fabian, for the most part, people are going to say that wasn't a great signing. I'm one of those as well. But, he gave us that moment against New York Red Bulls, so I'm not going to hate on him too much and everything. And whether or not you want to debate that it was a cross or not, yeah, it probably was a cross. But, hey, the ball went in the back of the net. And for the $1.2 million or whatever we were paying him last season, it was all worth it, in my opinion, for that goal and everything, to give us our first playoff win against our rivals, even though they don't want to call us the rivals. But maybe games like that, moments like that, they start taking us more serious and everything. And for people that have listened to the podcast ever since December, I've been calling for 3 players to be signed by the union. And those players are Adam Lallana, who has now signed a 3-year deal with Brighton in the Premier League, Alex Teixeira, who plays in China, and Mario Götze, who is a free agent currently. And if you guys want to know why I said those 3 players, then you have to go back and listen to older episodes. And to save you guys time, I always include topics in the show notes, and I tell you guys what time those topics start. So to save you guys some time, you're welcome. But going back to Mario Götze, the thing for me is that would be an incredible signing because of the experience he's had playing at Dortmund, playing at Bayern Munich, and most people will remember he scored the game-winning goal against Argentina in the 2014 World Cup. And he definitely peaked way too fast, in my opinion, being I think he was like 21 at the time, scoring against Argentina and everything. It's like, moments like that don't get any bigger than that. But he's a guy who's still just 28 years old, and all 3 of the guys I mentioned would be great attacking options to open up teams that park the bus, like we saw Portland do, like we saw Seattle do last year when they came into Subaru Park. Portland did the same thing. Colorado did the same thing. We just had no way of breaking them down. And like you said, the El Senior thing gets old and everything. Teams know when he comes onto the field, let's double team him, let's triple mark him and everything, and he's just not going to be as effective anymore. But the interesting thing about Mario is he just hasn't signed yet, and we're in August now, and he's been a free agent since June. And it was reported back in May and June that his reported salary demands were $9.4 million a year, or monthly it would be around $180,000 per week. Now, Mario is being linked to FC Cincinnati for a reported salary of $4.5 million, or $86,000 per week. And I think Mario was smart to bring that number down because there's just no market for a player that's coming off an injury, as a player that's been in and out on the Dortmund lineup. There's no way a team's going to be comfortable paying him $9.4 million. So he's smart for saying, yeah, I'll cut that in half and take $4.5 million. But, I think it is kind of telling, though, that still, like I said, it's August and nobody's signed him yet. And now he's being linked to the MLS. No teams in Europe I've seen linked to him. So maybe teams in Europe know a little bit more about him than what we know here in America and everything. Maybe the injury problems he's had are a lot more concerning, and that's why teams are staying away. But let's face it, a player like that, a caliber player like that's going to be a top 5 player in the league. And just in general, I think that would be a great move for MLS and everything, to have a player still in his prime come over here in the MLS and play. But do you think the Union will be active in the transfer market?
Like I said, the tricky thing about bringing players over is, number one, you can look at what the team does, but what the team does isn't necessarily what Jim wants to do. He said to me, numerous times, I would bring players over, but, I'll always get told no. I've given him names in the past. I've mentioned names to him, and he said, they'd never pay the money for that guy. They'd never pay the money for that guy. And they were not, like top level guys. Okay. The tough part, I think, about finding an international player to come to MLS and make an impact is, you have to find a guy, number one, who's willing to come and willing to, be a member of the team, not to be elitist and not to look down on everybody. Like if you look at the effect that Zlatan had on the Galaxy, he's gone and now they're terrible. But when he was there, they were dangerous in every game and the players believed that. If you look at Nani's performance for Orlando, I mean, that's a guy who cares about winning. You need a player to come in who's not just ushering out his career, but a player who wants to play. The impact of a player like that is going to be huge because, they're going to make everybody else on the team work harder. Absolutely. When a guy like Zlatan walks onto the field, there's not a player out there who doesn't stiffen up a little bit and get a little nervous and want to perform, because if Zlatan says you did good, then you did good. If Zlatan says you're crap, you're crap. So, that's what you're looking for. Somebody who can still play, but who still wants to play and is willing to be part of the team. Like Rooney was down in DC and hooked up well with Acosta. Yeah, like they forged a great relationship. That's the kind of thing that you're looking to get. And I mean, will the Union do that? Their transfer philosophy is, they bring in players that like them. I don't know if they go out and get what they like. Like, here's our target. Let's go get this guy. They don't really hunt that down and, break the bank for anybody. So, you never know what they're going to do. I mean, I remember I was actually in the stadium when I heard that the Union signed Freddie Adu. And I have to be honest, it was one of the most underwhelming moments of me supporting the Union ever. Because of all the, when you look at all the names that have come through MLS, Henry, Drogba, Villa, Rooney, Zlatan, Keane, Valady, just Pirlo, Lampard, Gerrard, and then Adu. That's our big moment. I don't think so.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. And I mean, for the Union, Mario Götze, they're not having to pay a transfer fee, but to pay $4.5 million a year, there's just no way I see the Union paying that and everything. I mean, Jameer, I think, is making $1.2 million this year. So the Union definitely are not going to pay triple that what Jameer Montero is making and everything, unless, Jay Sugarman surprises us. But I don't know how confident I feel in that and everything. But as we get close to wrapping up the podcast, I just want to know, what are your expectations are for the regular season, since it's supposed to resume August 21st against New England? Well,
I mean, I'm definitely looking for the team to continue and play well like they did in the tournament. Hopefully, from those games, they learned a lot. They found the things that they want to work on. And basically, they've shown that they can play. I think that, with the Union, in the history of the team, one of the biggest concerns has always been away games. Their road form from day one, their home form was kind of awful too. But the road games, it just seemed like they had no concept of how to play the game on the road. And I think that, they talk about making, Subaru Park a fortress, but I think that, they have to learn how to go out and plunder and pillage a little bit, in other stadiums, which is not something they've traditionally been able to do. So, I'm hoping that, everybody calms down on the transfer talk with Aronson and McKenzie. Just let them play. Like if we have good players in the team, they're going to help us win. So let's win, move forward, hopefully, make some noise, and then let those guys get some experience, and then we can sell them, later on down the line.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think Ernst Tanner actually came out and said something similar along those lines. He's like, we're not in a position where we need to sell. Like, we have goals as a club still and everything. And these two guys, Brendan Aronson and Mark McKenzie, help us achieve those goals and everything. It's like, yeah, I've got actual offers coming in for these guys and everything, but it's like, until we get an offer we feel comfortable accepting where these guys, it's going to do well for them developing, and we're happy with the money offering. We're just in no position to sell these guys. And that's a great motto to have. It's like, yeah, we have a good team. We have a good core group of players. Yeah, we might not be the best team in MLS, but I would go on and say we have a team that's between 6th and 7th best in all of MLS and everything. And to get rid of Mark McKenzie and Brendan Aronson, that would be a huge blow, especially when the regular season is going to kick off August 21st. That to let those guys go right now, I mean, the Union just wouldn't have enough time, in my opinion, to find replacements for those two guys. I mean, I know Jacob Glesnes would fill in for Mark McKenzie, which I'm fine with that, but we have no other number 10. I mean, I guess you can put Montero there, but he's more of a number 8, in my opinion, than a 10. And it's like, I just agree with you and Ernst both. It's like, why sell these guys when we don't have to right now, when we're building something? If we get an offer that's too good to turn away, then yeah, we're selling. But yeah, the season's still going on. There's no need to sell them.
Yeah, I mean, and if they can move forward, they're obviously two guys that have put themselves in the conversation for the national team. So if they move forward, have a good season with the Union, hopefully the world gets back to normal. And, when the Gold Cup comes around, they can get in the Gold Cup, have a good tournament, maybe play well in some qualifiers, and the more they play well now, first of all, it only helps the Union, and if they go with the national team and play well, it just drives the price up anyway. So realistically, selling them now would just, do nothing for us whatsoever. I mean, and it's like I keep saying, I'm supporting a team that I want to see win. I'm not supporting an academy. I don't want to support a team and cheer that we sold a player. I want to support a team and cheer, wins on the field.
Yeah, I definitely get that. And, I think MLS is always going to look at as a selling league and everything. I know everybody says it's a retirement league, but I guess that's kind of been pushed aside here as of late and everything. But still, it's like, I think MLS is definitely a few years off before they can keep hold of their best players and everything. But yeah, I'm with you. I mean, don't sell just for the sake of selling and everything. Like, if it makes sense for the club to sell, you can get a replacement in and everything, then I'm all for it. But if we're just selling because players are drawing interest from Europe, then you're not going to be very successful, in my opinion. But the last thing I'll ask you, John, before we wrap this up, I'm curious, though, there's been talks that the Union want to have fans at the stadium if the guidelines allow it. If the Union said, yeah, we'll have 20 to 25% capacity at the stadium, would you attend games?
Well, I mean, like I said earlier, at this point in my life, there's, other things that have taken me in different directions. So my attendance, now would have been spotty anyway. I mean, on principle, I don't know, right now, I don't know if, like if we weren't in a pandemic and everything going on, I could easily go back and, going to the games, it would be normal. I can go find my friends and have a good time and enjoy. But now with everything being as different as it is, I don't know. I mean, you're talking about 25% capacity, but then how do you decide who gets to go? There's more questions than answers at this point. And, I don't know. At this point, on a Saturday night, I'll take my dog for a nice long walk, grab a beer and sit down at home and watch the game in the comfort of my own home rather than, get upset with a bunch of things that are out of my control anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely hear that and everything. But real quick, do you want to let everybody know where they can find you on social media?
Well, actually, I'm trying to hide a lot these days.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
I'll give you my my old Twitter handle. It's at Marks MARKS XJ. People always misspell my name. They put an X on the end of it. So I just put it with the KS and the X because, the Marx brothers were pretty funny and, and my first name is John. So that's why the J's there. So it's at Marks XJ. And that's basically that.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, most of the people that listen to this podcast and everything are active on Twitter, and that's the only thing that seems like it matters. I know I saw Instagram and Facebook, but I don't use Facebook. I hardly post anything on Instagram. It's like, if you guys follow me, definitely follow the account on Twitter and everything. That's where I'm most active. And if you guys aren't, just follow the podcast at Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Free Kick Pod. Wherever you get your podcast, just search The Free Kick Todd Lewis, and you'll be able to find me. But yeah, I had a blast talking with you and hearing there's amazing backstories that you shared with us today, Jon.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I really enjoyed it. And, best of luck with everything in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. And real quick before we go, I want to give a shout out to Ed for just introducing us and everything. So I'm glad that we were able to get this together and everything. But with that said, my name is Todd, and this is The Free Kick Podcast.